Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wasn't planning on making this kind of video. It's been about 5 years since I made a video that included any kind of politics in it, and I was really planning on keeping it that way, but then the whole incident on the Rust movie set happened, and I was planning on doing a video about that probably after the whole investigation was over. But then I watched Alec Baldwin's interview with that one guy, George. I can't even I can't even pronounce the guy's last name, but it was on Hulu. I just saw the whole thing front to back, and there's a lot to unpack that on why I think about it. But before I get into the interview, here's what I know. Here's what I know about guns, and I'm sorry, but it's pretty much gonna be a retread of what a bunch of people have already said before. So there's pretty much 3 to 4 basic rules of firearm safety. The first one is you never fire. Sorry, you never point a gun at something that you're not ready to destroy. You never pull the trigger. Well, you never even put your finger on the trigger unless you are ready to destroy that something. You treat every gun as if it's loaded, even if you know it's completely empty, or if it has, or in this case, if you think it has dummy rounds. And the fourth and final rule that some people leave out, some people like me just put in there, is you treat every single gun as if it's real. It doesn't matter if it's a prop gun, it doesn't matter if it's a toy gun. It can be like a bright school bus yellow Nerf gun, and you should still treat it as if it's a live gun with live ammunition. So that's what I know. I guess right before I get into this, I guess the whole reason why I'm talking about this in the first place is because the whole incident, especially the interview, I guess it kind of struck a nerve with me about like everything that Alec Baldwin is saying, and I don't really kind of want to say that I got personally mad about, but I myself have used live firearms and live ammunition during some of my videos on this channel, and I've still followed those 4 firearm safety rules. So, I don't know, then this kind of just struck a chord with me. But getting into the interview itself, I will admit, I do feel a little bit bad for Alec Baldwin over this whole thing, because his friend did die from this, and he does feel devastated over the whole thing. Now, the part that set me off about the whole interview, though, was the fact that during pretty much the first segment, he is constantly saying things like, "I assume," and "in my opinion," and you never assume for anything on your job, okay? And this goes beyond the whole thing with Rust and with like if there's live rounds or dummy rounds in a gun. This goes for like every job. Like you never assume that the trash is taken out. You check and see if the trash is actually taken out. You never assume that the lights are shut off. You double check and see if the lights are actually shut off. You never assume that the doors are locked to a business. You actually go and see that. But you guys get the idea. And so like that stuff, you never assume that the gun is empty, even if you're told that specifically by other people. You should still double check it yourself to make sure that there are live rounds in there. The next big thing that he would constantly say is that he was saying a lot that, like, well, it's not his responsibility. First of all, he was saying it's not his responsibility to, like, check the gun, and he cites that somebody told him that that you don't want the actor to be the last line of defense. And I sort of understand what they're saying on that, and I do get that technically it was not his job to check the gun, but that doesn't matter. Just because something isn't your job doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. You're the one holding the gun, you're the one that's pointing the trigger. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. You're the one pointing the gun, you're the one whose finger is on the trigger. It is absolutely your responsibility to double check and make sure that that there are no live rounds in the gun. Like, again, going back to pretty much every other job, how do you think it would go if, say, you're working at a grocery store and your boss walks by and starts asking you, like, why the heck is there this, like, why the heck are these muddy footprints, like, out in aisle 13? What do you think is going to happen if you say, well, it's not my job, it's not my responsibility? Your boss is going to say something along the lines of, I don't care if it's not your job, you get your ass out there and mop up that mud. So same thing here. It doesn't matter if your job is not specifically to check the guns. It doesn't matter if your job is not the armorer and your job is just acting. You should still check the rounds. And the next thing about that is I'm pretty sure they were talking a little bit about, like, live rounds and dummy rounds, where they were saying something along the lines of how the live rounds look like dummy rounds, and I don't own a Colt 45, which was around the same type of weapon that Alec Baldwin had, and I don't really know if there's an actual difference between the dummy rounds for that kind of gun or the dummy rounds for every other gun, but as far as I know, here's what I know. For every other gun that I have handled and fired, the dummy rounds are visually different from live rounds. Like, usually the cases where the head of the bullet is, like, crimped at the edges. In some other cases, or like the one that Alec Baldwin outright said in the interview, there would be, like, a wad of cloth stuck in there to keep the gunpowder in there until it's actually fired. So, going by what Alec Baldwin himself said, that those would be the dummy rounds for that gun, then people should have known that there was a live round in that gun. But sorry, I got a little bit heated there. But it just ground my gears so much that he would be constantly saying that it's not his job and it's not his responsibility. And yes, he's right. Technically, it's not his job, but it is definitely your responsibility as the man holding the firearm to check a gun. Like, even, and I know that some other actors who commented on this, they said that, like, even when the armorers tell them that, like, it's a cold gun, it's empty, they still check it themselves. And that's what people do all the time when they are given, like, a gun. And Alec Baldwin did also say something about how, where he was told that if, like, he pulled, that say, like, in a different movie where they're using a modern pistol, and he pulled out the magazine to check the rounds, then the armorer, whoever, would have to take it back, and they'd have to reload the whole thing themselves. And personally, I think that is a small price to pay if that's what it takes to keep a movie set safe. But that's really all that I remembered of the interview itself. Even though I just finished watching it, but it just came off as, despite Alec Baldwin feeling at least some sort of guilt over what happened, that one of his friends is dead and another is injured on the set. It just felt like he was making excuses by saying, like, well, I assumed, or in my opinion, and then capping it off with, well, it wasn't my responsibility. And I didn't even talk about the armorer either, or about the fact that how apparently this was only her second gig, and from what I've heard, she got the job because of her father being a more famous armorer. Or the fact that, another thing that I heard, and by the way, there's going to be links in the description for this, so I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. Another thing that I heard was that not only have there been, like, already multiple safety violations on the set, but like there have been at least 2 negligent discharges from what I heard on that specific set. I don't know if the second one was the one that killed the cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, I believe her name was. But the point is, that wasn't the first negligent discharge. That one just happened to kill somebody at the time. Or the fact that according to another report, the armorer and other crew members were out shooting those guns at a shooting range prior to the filming. But I don't know. And at the end of the day, this whole thing is just messed up because somebody did die, and somebody is responsible. Alec Baldwin did say in the interview that one of his main questions is, how did the round get on set? So, personally, like, setting emotions aside, because at the end of all of this, what I think of Alec Baldwin personally does not matter in this situation. What I think of the armor does not matter. What I think of anybody on the film set of Rust does not matter in this situation. It doesn't matter that I disagree with Alec Baldwin personally, especially over what he said. So what I personally think happened, where that led to what happened that day, was based on that report where the armorer and other crew members were out shooting the guns. I think what happened was they were screwing around on the shooting range, firing the weapons. They came back to the movie set. Let me rephrase that. They were fooling around at the shooting range, firing the guns. They came back to the movie set, and they forgot to completely get rid of all the live rounds. And because of that negligence, one or maybe more, even more of those live rounds got mixed in with the dummy rounds when the armorer decided to load the pistol that Alec Baldwin would eventually have. But either way, a live round was put in that gun given to Alec Baldwin. They did not double check to make sure that it was a dummy round and not a live round. Alec Baldwin shot the cinematographer, wounded the director, and the rest, they say, is history. I don't believe that it was deliberately sabotaged or anything. I don't believe that that this whole thing was to get back at Alec Baldwin for some twisted reason. At the end of the day, I think this is I don't know if I'm using this correctly, but I think this is just an Occam's razor situation. Like there's no conspiracy that somebody was trying to make Baldwin look bad. There was no plot that tried to get somebody killed on the set of Rust. At the end of the day, this all just boils down to negligence and ignorance and people just not doing their jobs, right? And I guess one more kind of thing, real quick. Alec Baldwin said specifically that prior to the cinematographer's death, he was practicing his his mark, I believe it was called, where he said that he pulled the hammer on the gun back as far as he could without cocking it. And he asked if it was good. She said yes. He released the hammer, and then the gun just went off. So I originally thought that because it was like a single action revolver, I originally thought that what happened was he pulled the hammer back, and then the moment sorry. I think what happened was what I thought happened was he pulled it back as far as he could, and then the moment he released it, the hammer shot back like a rubber band. And I originally thought that that a weapon can be fired like that without even pulling the trigger, because the assistant director outright said that Baldwin's finger was nowhere near the trigger and it was out of the trigger guard. Well, I have seen other people on YouTube who know a lot more about firearms than I do, where they have actually shown the exact type of weapon that Alec Baldwin fired, and they explained that the hammer clicks 3 or 4 times, so even if you pull it back all the way, like right before it gets fully cocked, and you take your thumb off the hammer, it'll go forward, but it won't go completely forward. It'll stop at half-cocked, I believe they said. So either way, it will not fire. So in order for it to fire, then Baldwin's finger had to be on the trigger. Maybe he didn't pull it. Maybe he just grazed the trigger. And I get it that after what happened, he would be in shock, possibly even denial. I get that. Like, he said that it was about 45 minutes to an hour after he realized that the cinematographer was dead, because there was a live round in there. And I understand that. Like, if something like that happened, like if I was in his shoes, I would be in disbelief too. I would. Like, because I would have thought that I would be questioning myself. Like, did I pull the trigger? Like, I could have sworn that I had it out of the trigger guard, and so I get that when he I'm pretty sure he believes that his finger was not on the trigger. But at the end of the day, like I said, the crew was fooling around with weapons at shooting range. They came back. At least one of those rounds Baldwin even said that there were multiple live rounds that were found on the set. So because of the fooling around on the range, some of those live rounds were brought back out to the film set. They got mixed in with the dummy rounds. One of those rounds ended up being placed into like Baldwin's gun. I'm still pretty sure it was an accident, and Baldwin Baldwin's finger probably grazed or lightly tapped the trigger in an attempt to disarm it. That's what I think happened. So, and I guess as my final thoughts to this whole thing, at the end of the day, like somebody lost their life due to a negligent discharge. At the end of the day, uh, it was an accident. It was, but that doesn't mean that somebody is not responsible. Personally, and this one is bringing back, I guess, personal thoughts. I guess my personal thoughts on the situation. Um, I'm still trying to be fair on this because, like I said, my personal opinion on Baldwin or anyone else in this situation does not matter. But uh, looking at the facts that we have been given, I honestly think that that Baldwin and the armorer are the most at fault for this. The armorer for not doing her job carefully, especially since this was only her second gig. And Baldwin himself is also responsible because he did not check the gun himself. And I get what he said, that he's been told multiple times, like that he can't be the one to do that, and that an actor should not be the last line of defense. And from that angle, I do agree on that. But looking at it from an angle of somebody holding a firearm, the person who is holding the gun should be the last line of defense in this kind of situation. But I guess that's all I can really say on this whole situation. There is a chance that the gun could have been modified, where the hammer can spring forward from being pulled that far back. I did hear about that, but where it can be modified to do that, but you would have to pretty much physically damage the gun. I think it was something about like shaving off like part of the trigger mechanism. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure there is a way to modify the gun where it doesn't have to go through like the 4 clicks and just shoot all the way forward. So what I think needs to happen is they need to actually examine the actual gun to see if it got modified in any sort of way, whether it was supposed to be modified like for the purpose of the film, or if like somebody tampered with it, because there's a chance that somebody did tamper with it. There is. I don't think it's likely that somebody went out of their way to sabotage the set, but there is a small chance that that is exactly what happened. But again, like I said, this all comes down to people just making assumptions and not like double checking what was real and what wasn't. And that's apparently what happened the whole time on the set. And well, the thing is, this time, well, it ended with somebody's death. But But my thoughts aside on everyone in the situation, uh, I don't think it's fair to think that Biden is 100. Sorry, not Biden, Baldwin. It's not fair to put 100% of the blame on Alec Baldwin in this situation. But that's all from me. I'm done here.